welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to sit down and talk to you all about my quarantine recommendations. Over the last 8-9 weeks, I think I have become an absolute expert in procrastinating, but that's kind of part of quarantine, I guess. I've definitely consumed a lot of content over the last couple months, but today I have whittled it down to my favorite things I would really recommend to you guys. Obviously, most people are still at home in quarantine and have a little bit more time to spend like watching TV, reading a book, listening to podcasts. And even if you're not in quarantine, these are all things that you would enjoy anyways. So I've separated this video out into 5 sections. So we have books, podcasts, shows, YouTube and movies. Hopefully this will give you something to do if you're bored in quarantine. Starting out with books. First book I'm going to talk about is Normal People. Now, there is no way on earth that you haven't heard of this, and you've probably read it already, so I'm just going to talk about it quickly, but if you haven't, it is a book that was published in 2018, so it's actually been out a couple of years, won a lot of awards, but it's gaining a lot more traction at the moment because of the BBC series that just came out. It follows a guy and a girl through their kind of like relationship journey. So it starts when they're in 6th form in school, and then it goes all the way through to like the end of their university careers. So it's very interesting and it covers like such a long range. I think it's a really realistic look at love. The book is written so uniquely, and Ali Rooney just does an amazing job at creating a really realistic relationship, and it's not as romanticized, I think, as a lot of romance books, shows and stuff are. Next up I have This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. So this book is probably one of the best books I've read in a long time. I think it caught me by surprise because I really didn't know if I was going to like it as much as I did. He was a junior doctor, so it's essentially his journey from just graduating with a medicine degree to like I think 6-7 years later his journey on becoming a consultant. It's essentially journal entries from the happenings during his work day. It's a real inside look into what it's like working in the NHS and the struggles and everything that come with it. He's also very witty and funny. This is a very comedic book in some ways, but it also has some really serious messages and moving ending to the book as well. It kind of all builds up to him leaving the NHS. Next up is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This is such a good book. I think a lot of people have read this as well. She's very, very funny. This book is her journey from very young in school all the way through to like when she's 30. Yeah, it's just kind of her journey through life. She's also very funny. And I think this is one of those books that like when you finish it you feel almost wiser. I think it's definitely taught me some life lessons. Such a page turner. Next up is 9 Perfect Strangers. So this is a fictional novel and I don't tend to read those actually. The basic storyline is there is a health retreat where you can go and it's like no phones, no technology, like it's very spiritual, all of that sort of thing. Strangers go to the retreat all looking for something different. I don't want to give anything away, but it has a huge plot twist and it's very, very gripping. Such a fun book. Sometimes it's nice to read something that's like takes you outside of yourself, gets you thinking about a different story that's nothing to do with you, and this is definitely one of those books. Next up I have The Guilty Feminist. So this is the only book that I didn't read this year. I read this last summer, but I thought I'd include it anyway because I did really like it. Written by Deborah Frances White, and there's lots of different topics within the book. The whole kind of premise, the guilty aspects of being a feminist and all the contradictions going on in your mind. If you've ever felt like a bad feminist, she really sums it up well, and again there's a lot to learn. Quite a not educational book, but like it definitely taught me something. So, and she's also hilarious, so very good book. And then the book I started yesterday is called Talking to My Daughter, A Brief History of Capitalism. I'm only like 30 pages in, but I'm really enjoying this as well. The first chapter that I'm just reading now is talking about why there's so much inequality. The writer of the book is Yanis Varoufakis, but it's written from a left-wing point of view and I think it's really, really interesting. It's a very accessible book. You don't need to like have studied economics at all to like read this, but I think having a brief understanding, which is what you can obtain from this book, is actually really important just for like being a decent human. So okay, next section is podcasts. I have quite a few podcasts. I don't want to talk too long about each one, but the first one is The High Low. So this is hosted by Pandora Sykes and Dolly Alderton, who I talked about already with her book. They describe it as a weekly conversation between the two of them, which I think is a perfect summary of it. They talk about pop culture, society, lots of different topics. They often read articles or pieces from different authors, talk about literally anything, but it's always very relevant to the current situation of what's going on that week. And I do genuinely feel like you're just sort of sitting down talking with them. A huge range of topics from just funny, uplifting things, but they also do dive into some really moving literature, which that range is really, really interesting. to see all in one podcast. Probably my favourite podcast at the moment. Next up I have What We Said, which is hosted by JC and Chelsea, who are best friends. I think they met in high school and they do a lot of different topics. They also do interviews. I just love their dynamic. I think they're so funny, and this one you definitely feel like you're just sitting down chatting with some friends. One of my favourite episodes they've done recently is the Law of Attraction episode. So Chelsea is a very like spiritual, she's vegan, she's a health coach, and then JC is a full-time influencer. So I feel like you definitely get to see two types of careers and lifestyles, and they have a lot of episodes if you want to like listen to old ones. I think the old ones are great as well. Next I have But What's Next by Michelle Reed. I feel like people kind of tell you what, you know, the whole like life plan is to like, you go to school, you do your GCSEs, you do your A-levels, you get into university, you graduate university, and then it's like, but what's next? And that's kind of what she's playing off of in her podcast. So she graduated university a year ago and she lives in New York City, which I think is really cool aspect. She's only just started this podcast, but I've watched her YouTube videos for like literally 4 or 5 years. I'm like a lifelong subscriber. I really like her. She's very like calm and collected. She recently did an episode all about moving to New York City, which obviously I'm not doing, but I thought was really, really interesting. Next I have The Girls Bathroom by Sophia and Cinzia. They are lifelong besties and are obviously YouTubers. You've probably watched them. I think they are hilarious. So they have a kind of dilemma based podcast, alternates between girl talk and boy talk. So people will send in dilemmas, you guys can send them in to them and they will answer some of them on the podcast. They're just so funny, and I think they actually give really sound advice, but it's just interesting to hear everyone's dilemmas. I think it's really fun podcast. Next I have Talking Tate Spuds, which is hosted by Venetia Falconer. I think she is like an influencer, but she's very sustainable. She's all about like plastic free living, zero waste, etc. A different interviewee each week, always talking about something to do with sustainability, veganism, maybe mental health, lots of different topics, but all kind of in that realm. Recently interviewed Damon Gemmo, I'm not sure how you say his surname, but it was all about what 2040 could look like and kind of like the steps we need to take to stop the literal extinction of our species. Obviously we're going down a very bad path with fast fashion and like meat consumption, all of that sort of thing. Next up is The Wooden Spoon, which is hosted by Jack Edwards, Ruby Granger, Jade from Unjaded Jade, and Eve Cornwell. So some of my favourite ever YouTubers. They're all study tubers, so it's kind of from an academic perspective, but they talk about kind of everything that encompasses being a student, so like mental health, perfectionism, being a leader, lots of different topics, but I just love their dynamic because I think they're for like quite different people and I just think it works really, really well. And then the last one I've written down is Freakonomics Radio. So I think the guy that produces it or hosts it is the author of Freakonomics, the book. So basically they describe it as a podcast about the hidden side of everything. So this definitely isn't like very, very focused on economics, but I think economics is much broader than like maybe you would think. So yeah, they talk about like literally everything on there. One of those podcasts you can get like literally anything on there, like so many topics, but I think it's really cool to see such a huge range of stuff. So recent episode that I thought was really interesting is called The Side Effects of Social Distancing, which again is so apt in today's day, obviously. Okay, next up we have shows. So this is like a range of TV shows from like Netflix who just general shows. So first one obviously had to be done is Normal People. So this is on BBC iPlayer. I think it's a BBC 3 series, obviously adapted from the book that I was talking about earlier. I think it's incredibly well made and it's just such a dreamy show. Like I just loved it. Do not watch it if you haven't read the book. Like just don't do it, because I feel like you can't appreciate it fully without reading the book. And I think every single thing in the show is just more meaningful if you've read the book, and like it's quite a difficult show to almost narrate because the book does that so well, but it's very difficult to like do that with a show. So I definitely say read the book first, but the only thing is don't watch it like with your parents, I would say, because it's got some very explicit sex scenes. Next one is Unorthodox. So this is a 4-part series. It's on Netflix. This is the best thing I've watched in a long time on Netflix. This is so well made. So it follows a girl who is from a very Orthodox Jewish community in New York, and it's basically her journey kind of escaping a very controlling situation that she just doesn't feel. I think she feels oppressed and unhappy in the situation that she's in, and she basically escapes to another country. I'm not going to give too much away. Very, very well made, and shows like that really make me think are my favorite type of shows. When a show is about something that I just don't know anything about, I find it so interesting to watch. And it's also based off of the true story of a woman who was actually in that situation, so I think that's extra meaningful. There's only like 4 hours of it, so I definitely recommend. It's not a big commitment. Okay, next thing is a series on Netflix called Atypical. I have watched this before, but I rewatched it during quarantine and I really enjoyed this. It follows a boy who is on the autistic spectrum, and it's basically his journey through school and university, navigating friendships, relationships, everything, and such a good show. I love this show so much. What I also really like is that it also kind of follows like his parents' story and his sibling and his friends, and like they've also all got very interesting storylines going on, and I think the character development in this show is just really unique, and you definitely get kind of attached to him and the other characters. Yeah, there's 3 series, so if you're looking for something a bit more meaty to watch, I definitely recommend. Pretty light-hearted and funny. It's not like too upsetting, but there are also deeper themes within the show. Next up is Good Girls on Netflix. This is one of my favorite shows and something I never thought I would have liked. So there are basically, it's about 3 mums who have just been friends from childhood, and they all have kind of like money troubles. In like, I think it's the first episode, they end up robbing a grocery store. The next 3 seasons are kind of what comes off of that decision and everything that happens because of that. And this is such an interesting and unique show. I love shows that have a new storyline that isn't just like boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love, you know, they have some troubles and they end up falling in love and everything's good at the end. This is definitely like a fun, different storyline, and this is also definitely a funny show. Next, I have Cheer on Netflix. I have watched this 3 times. Just unreal, like the best show ever. Obviously as a cheerleader, I guess I'm kind of biased, but I do really think anyone would like this. I have friends that have watched it that don't do cheer and they really liked it. So it follows a college team called Navarro and their kind of season with cheer, everything that they do that goes into their final routine, their competition at the college nationals in America. Cheer is such a crazy sport in America, and if you don't know anything about cheer, I feel like this would be maybe even more interesting. What I think makes this show really special is that it really dives into each team member's journey and like where they've come from and like what their life was like. A lot of them have very moving stories, so I just thought that was a really cool element to the show. Yeah, again, I think there's only like 6 to 8 episodes, so it's not like too much to watch, but a really cool show and something quite different, I think. Next one is Celebrity SAS. So the SAS is the Special Forces unit in the British Army, if you didn't know that. Basically the show SAS Who Dares Wins, they basically get like, I think it's 12 people. Normally they're not celebrities, it's just like normal people, and they put them through some of like the toughest challenges. They're like jumping out of helicopters and hanging on tiny ropes high up in the air, carrying boats for like 5 kilometers, like loads of stuff like that. There's lots of celebrities on it that I've actually heard of, which is kind of rare for like a show like that. Joey Essex, Helen Skelton, Katie Price, like lots of fun people, and it's really interesting to see how they cope in all these situations. It also dives into like their stories and like where like, struggles they've had in their lives, which I think is a really interesting element to it. It's set in Scotland and the whole thing's just like very well made. It maybe sounds like something you wouldn't like, but give it a go because it's definitely better than I'm making it sound. Next thing I've been watching is Gogglebox. So if you're not from the UK, do they have Gogglebox anywhere else? But it's basically just people watching TV. So it's 1 episode a week, and they pick lots of different like families and couples and just like single people and like lots of different people. They film themselves watching TV. So in the episode you get snippets of different shows from throughout the week, and then also those people's reactions. So funny, but also a really good way to catch up on like some random shows. I've got a lot of shows from, sometimes I'll watch something on Gogglebox and then I think, oh, that show actually looks really good, and then I, you know, start watching it. But I love Gogglebox because it works so well during quarantine because it doesn't really need to change, especially like maybe if you're in quarantine alone. I feel like it kind of feels like you're watching TV with other people. So, and then the last thing that I have is called 3 Girls. It is a BBC drama. There's 3 parts to it, I think. I watched it on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's still on BBC iPlayer. I watched it like a long time ago, but I just thought I'd throw it in here because it's incredible. Award-winning drama, and it follows 3 girls who are victims of sexual abuse and grooming. I think it's set in like Manchester, and I think it's based off of a real like real life events or like real happenings. I wouldn't recommend this if you know that those topics are difficult for you to watch, or if you're in a difficult place, because it is really hard hitting and just, it's almost hard to watch. Very serious show. Most of the other ones I've talked about have been like a bit more lighthearted, but if you are ever in the mood for something like serious, this is really well made and very moving. Okay, section cuatro is YouTube. So I've just got a few YouTubers that I've been watching a lot recently. I've also been watching a lot of like YouTubers old videos from like years ago. I've got a bad habit at the moment of watching people's travel vlog. Is essentially my version of torture, I guess. I was watching someone's travel vlog to Italy the other day and I literally could cry. As I'm filming this, I should be in Spain right now. It's fine. At the same time, I do think it's nice to kind of watch people doing other things. Sometimes watching people in lockdown 24/7 can get a bit like too much. So first one is Best Dressed, my all-time favorite YouTuber. I love her. I think she's amazing and her videos are the best made ever. She did a film degree and she's just like insane. Her editing and everything's so good. So she uploaded like a couple videos during lockdown, I think maybe like 3, but I've rewatched all her old videos and they're just like so good and it's so well made that it's so easy to rewatch even if you've watched it already. Next is Moya Morwilly. I love her videos. She talks about like sustainability. She has a lot of fashion content. She lives in Northern Ireland and she has so much fun content and she's also amazing at editing. Next I have Jazzy Lee. So she is an American gal. She posts videos I think mainly like fashion lifestyle type of thing, but I just think she's so funny and her editing is also really cool. Kind of in the same realm as Best Dressed, but just a different vibe. Next I have Lydia Violetta. So she is kind of like study tube, lifestyle, lots of different things. She's got some really cool lockdown vlogs which I've been watching them all, and yeah, I really like her. I think she's like quite similar to me. Like a lot of the things she does, like she does like the shreddy workouts and she has like Tala, and I don't know, I just feel like we're kind of similar and I really like her videos. Next I have Eve Bennett, specifically her Evening In with Eve and Gin videos. So she kind of just sits down with a drink and talks about what's on her mind and everything to do with lockdown, and I think it really does make you feel less alone and like you're sitting down with a friend and just chatting away. So I really like her videos. Next I have Sophia and Cinzia. So I talked about their podcast earlier. They're not quarantined together, which I think is almost kind of interesting because the videos flick between their two households. So Sophia lives at home and then with her parents, and Cinzia lives with her boyfriend, so I think it's fun to see the different dynamics. They have been uploading vlogs which are literally like an hour and a half long, which is such a godsend when you are bored like me. They're both so funny. They just show like what they're up to, a lot of like baking, fashion, makeup, lots of different things, but I think what really makes their videos is just how funny and like down to earth they are. Next I have Grackle. I'm quite new to her channel. I feel like Amy, my friend at uni, has always watched her videos, but I'm kind of new and I love it. She's a very different YouTuber. She kind of gives me like Emma Chamberlain vibes, but not kind of like the old Emma Chamberlain. She's just really funny. She does like baking videos, fashion videos, but in such a different way. Like she doesn't take herself too seriously. She's very like real and I feel like she just kind of says it how it is, which I really like. Next I have Eve Cornwell. I've watched her videos for a long time, like since watched her videos for a couple years, but she's recently doing these videos where she kind of follows like lawsuits and cases, and I think it's insane. She's such a good editor. Like she edits her videos so well and those videos are so unique. I've never really watched videos. She's done recently one about Oscar Pistorius, a true crime sort of like look into the whole case, which is actually so interesting. So if you're into that sort of thing, I really recommend. And then I've also, a bit of a change of pace, but I've written down Aspen and Parker. I've watched their videos for years. They have like an 8-month-old baby and it's just like cute vlogs. I think good if you're like, you need something kind of on in the background. And then also Alex Sentomo, she's just had a baby like literally 2 weeks ago, I think. She uploads like vlogs but also like fashion videos and just like about her life. So yeah, she lives in Canada. And then section 5 is movies. I've only got a few because I'm not a huge movie gal. I actually, don't kill me, but I don't really like movies. I hate to go into the cinema, but here are a few good ones. First I have The Social Network. So I haven't watched this for a long time, but I just saw it on my recommended the other day. I was like, I really like that movie. So it stars Jesse Eisenberg and Mark Zuckerberg, and it basically follows the creation of Facebook and all the lawsuits that follow. I think it's really interesting to see where everything that we have right now, like where it all came from and where it started, and then it's so interesting to think about like how far we've come since then and like how life has changed. Yeah, I also think it's just a really well made movie. And then my favorite movie of all time is About Time. It's a 2013 movie, so it's a little bit old. So it stars Rachel McAdams and Domhnall Gleeson. Such a good movie. So basically the main character has this ability to travel in time. He's kind of able to like go back in time and change things, which is a very interesting concept, but it's not weird. I feel like the way that that makes it sound, like if someone says to me, do you want to watch this movie about like a time travel, I'd be like, no. But it's not weird like that. This film is the ultimate cozy vibe. if you just want to like feel nice and cozy. It makes me feel so homely. It's set in London, and they also kind of go to Cornwall quite a bit, where his parents live, and that's really like, I think one of the reasons I really like it, because my grandparents live in Cornwall, so I feel like those are the two places I've spent like a lot of my childhood. Yeah, it follows their relationship from like the first day of meeting to having kids and complications and things that happen down the line. What I love about this movie is the ending message is something I really try and like implement in my everyday life. It gives you all those like cozy vibes, but it also does have like a serious, important message. And then the last one I have is more of a documentary, but it is Game Changers. This talks all about the benefits of plant-based eating for athletes. If you're vegan or not vegan, I would recommend watching it. I'm not telling you to go vegan, but it is a really good show. It's just really interesting to see. It's very well made, like production of it is insane. I would 1000% recommend watching it. Anyone could take something away from it, whether you believe in veganism or completely not. They talk to a lot of people in the show that aren't vegan or don't believe in veganism and do like experiments and things like that. So it's really, it's not too preachy, which I think you guys would like. That is everything that I have reading, listening to, consuming during lockdown. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's kind of a random idea. No one requested this, so I hope that you like it. Yeah, I would love if you guys could leave your top recommendations in the comments. Then I will have some things to watch, and we can all just kind of like converse about what we think are good shows, and then we'll have an even bigger list of things. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, I know this is a long one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I love you so much, and have a good week. Bye!